What is going on, everybody? This is me and Chris here at the FiatRexa Fireside Chat. Today, we have a super exciting topic for you guys today, where we're going to be talking to you guys about how stablecoins and tokenized fiats are going to be a powerhouse this next upcoming cycle. So we're excited to get right into it. And so, first off, let's just tap in. So recently I was looking at some news, and Chris, I know we've been talking about this for some time now, like how stable coins have now surpassed the volume that both Visa and MasterCard had.
Yeah, I think stablecoin volume is going to be very, very large fundamentally because it just provides a efficient way to deal with fiat um, that is superior to everything else in the traditional banking system or the modern banking system, both. It's actually like thinkers who brought this stuff up and knew that this was coming for a long time, but they also assumed banks would be like kind of doing it, and also like there's other variations, but some banks are doing it, and I think more and more banks are going to be doing it. But there's going to be like other entities as well, and I think like realistically, we already know the issues with a lot of entity structures. So the benefits of new structures that become possible through blockchain technologies, specifically decentralized ones on like all the primary networks, because then you get added decentralization benefits. Uh, I think that stuff is the best way of dealing with it, and like we're going to see like crazy growth. I think like the money supply grows, uh, more and more money is going to flow into stablecoins, and even just based on like money supplies versus current stablecoin market caps, like it's a drop in the bucket. There's a lot of growth just on that context. Then when you include the growing money supply, the growth prospects for tokenizing a fiat via stablecoins that are backed stablecoins, algorithmic stablecoins, through centralized entities or decentralized structures, uh, or hybrids or new things. Like there's going to be a lot of ways of doing this. I think the safest way is what FiatRexa is doing. Uh, but maybe someone will, I don't know if someone can actually, because yeah, fundamentally.
Yeah, so that's actually an interesting point. Let's kind of elaborate on that, because I know we've spoken before about how FiatRexa, obviously tokenized fiats function, even though they are similar to stablecoins, it is quite different in some ways to stablecoins, and how, based on security as well as governance, yeah, it being DeFi as opposed to being centralized, this creates a place where the people, which is really important because that's what money is for, people to use, have a direct influence on how that token or how that fiat is distributed.
Yes, and like I'd say also, yeah, to put numbers to some of those points from earlier, it's like I think our stablecoin market cap is like a few $100 billion, maybe closer to like a couple $100 billion or something like this. Um, our total money supply, most places, is measured in trillions of dollars at the moment,
Mm.
um, like many trillions of dollars. So I do think it's like I think penetration just on market right now is like probably 1 to 3% of what it should be fairly
Yeah.
soon because of the just the improvements in utility. Um, the alternative is though like we might go with CBDCs. I think CBDCs are going to own a significant share of the market as well. Hopefully not too much, and hopefully it's a brief experiment which we get over very quickly, so we don't get too much more corruption and fraud and issues in the system. Um, because CBDCs are not a good idea. CBDCs, especially with all the modern implementation ideas, are atrocious. And it's kind of like, it seems to me like CBDCs are intended to be centralized, and that is problematic. Because it just takes one bad actor.
Yeah, well, that's how they hope to get the most out of their system, right? Because at the end of the day, if they can have direct influence and control over it in that type of way, and they can also be able to, well, right now, if let's say you don't pay your taxes, by the way, we're not telling you don't pay your taxes. That would be absolutely terrible. But if let's say you get caught in a position where let's say you're going through something and you haven't done your taxes correctly because you are uninformed, or you let's say have put your money in certain places that maybe you shouldn't have, the government shouldn't be able to just directly take money right from your bank account.
Or if you have an opinion they don't like, they take money from your bank account. Or
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. Or if you have purchasing habits that they don't like, and yeah, what? That makes no sense. At the end of the day, everybody should be able to have their own autonomy. Everybody should be able to spend their money how they choose. Now, obviously, some people spend their money on good things, as well as some people spend their money on bad things. And obviously you would want to prevent some of the bad things, but at the end of the day, as long as systems are in place, like for example the laws, for example, then you can reduce criminal activity on that front. But you shouldn't try and use it as a control mechanism, because then it can get very tyrannical very quickly.
100%. And the problem is they already do this with fiat as it is. So with CBDCs, you're an extra risk. Another problem actually is like a lot of people don't realize, but the smart contracts for Tether and Circle are constructed such that this risk vector remains. Um, so you're not actually escaping it with the real backed assets. However, there are ways to actually get the backing and the assets and to actually benefit from them, which is a totally separate matter, which doesn't exist at all in the market, but FiatRexa has through the tokenized fiat system. Uh, there's some that kind of make partial benefit, but that's mostly from the utilities within the DeFi space. Uh, there are also things you can do in the traditional finance world, which bolster your security and boost your benefit, your yield. Um, I think if people did their research and found out how stablecoins all work currently and how fiat and monies all work currently, right down to like money market accounts, how Stripe and PayPal work, how your bank account works, how credit unions or other financial institutions work, uh, money transfer, whatever. The more you understand about all that stuff, the more you're gonna be like, okay, I get it. But also, how many people have the time to do that research, I guess?
Yeah. Well, it's I would say it's actually very paramount that people do that type of research, not even in just the sense of like, okay, let me sit down and read all of these different books and articles. Like you can do it on a basic level. Go out there, watch a YouTube video. There's short videos out there that explain these concepts in grade 5 form, we could say, on a basic level, that will allow you to be able to grasp the concept so that you're at the very least in the know of something. Because most people, when it comes to financial literacy, know absolutely nothing, and that is the reason why they get absolutely decimated by the credit market, and that's the reason why our debt is so high in this country. So yes, guys, please do your research.
Yeah, I think like it might actually be kind of hard to do research at this point because a bunch of noise is out there, and like the problem is people do kind of do what you say, where like they'll go look at a YouTube video or like a blog article or something, which is an obfuscation of source. Like we also do this even in schools with like textbooks, where the source material is obfuscated into the textbook, usually with a lot of critical context removed, sometimes not even properly referenced, and then in some situations, which is more rare, like they'll actually completely warp it, where to the point where like it's not just a slight honest mistake, like they'll inverse the meaning, which is kind of like where disinformation comes from, right? Like that's tactical. That is not a mistake anymore, or it's highly improbable that it's a mistake. So there's a fuck ton of misinformation, but there's also a lot of compounded disinformation where you have then unwitting good actors building on a piece of bad information that forces them in the wrong direction in their logical process or pathway. So it is hard to do the research because there's so much bullshit.
That's a fair point.
That's
That is a
it's
very,
hard.
very fair
It
point.
is hard.
Yeah, it's like you kind of have to be able to figure out, what is good information and what isn't. That's actually very, very good point because, yeah, even just in the crypto space, there's a lot of bad actors. There's a lot of people out there that will lead you astray just because it's beneficial for them. And at the end of the day, the problem in a space like this is you got a screener in your face. If somebody is not doxxed, like you don't know them.
I don't know if that's necessary because like I would say like we started with undoxed Satoshi, right? And at that point in that adoption curve of the market, people were interested in kind of going back to like 90s style internet interactions where it was
Mhm.
like very good at being more towards objectivity and contributing and wanting to just like share knowledge, build and grow and like fix a problem or fix problems. Um, that still exists. Like that node is still in crypto, but like each wave of adoption, there's less and less of those people as we get more of the population into crypto. Like the last TradFi wave in 2020 was like pretty atrocious. That's when crypto really got bad. In a lot of
Traders.
yeah,
There's a
not
lot
just
of traders.
traders, like just scammers, fraudsters, hackers. It took off.
Yeah.
Like things got really bad in that regard. It's suppressing the crypto market today for sure. At least in my perspective in modeling, I think it's suppressing the crypto market. Um, however, there are ways to mitigate against this stuff, and like one of the easiest ways to mitigate against this stuff is for people to just be better informed. Maybe that's not the easiest way functionally, because maybe the sum of work that people have to do for research and such is maybe prohibitive. So better tooling for sure, and I think the crypto space needs to be doing stuff to create better tooling. It's kind of what FiatRexa does too, right? Like we resolve your fiat problem because wherever you are in the world, you're going to be buying something with fiat at some point. And the ways in which you have to do that today, even if you're super smart about it, you've done all your research, the tools suck. But we can build like a super tool that is like this public good that everybody can just tap into and plug into, which will hopefully also boost the competency of the large centralized entities in the space and around the world. Like some of the stuff that we're building is prohibitive even for like mid-sized governments, maybe large ones too. To be honest, like I might be overassuming the competency that's throughout large governments because like I mentioned to you just before this call, like I was super stoked that Kathy Wood mentioned the capital velocity thing and the velocity of money. Sorry, which is a super duper important metric to economics if you know what you're talking about. Um, I brought this up with central bankers at the tippy top, and they were like, "That doesn't matter. What does this? What?" And I was like, I was so stunned, I couldn't respond. I was just like, "What?" Like my expectations of humanity and society have been beaten down month after month for 20 years, a little more than 20 years. But I still didn't see that coming. That still blindsided me. I was just seeing some shit, but I didn't expect that. That was insane. Um, so yeah, I feel like we're kind of beginning to figure stuff out again. Uh, I think people may do more research. I mean, if the boost in AI causes people to make more money with less time, then they'll have more time for research, which is what it fundamentally does do. Uh, the problem is we're probably going to stick to like the time for money exchange fallacy, which would be problematic. But we also escape that in FiatRexa, where it's hybrid at the start because of the bounties, but eventually it moves entirely away from it, where bounties and milestones are more nicely segmented out. So rewards are more linked to just pure deliverable format, so pure value creation. And the more we can hone in on like value for value exchange, the more fraud and noise and disinformation and misinformation we can cut out of that, the more efficient the system becomes. And as long as it's actually done in a manner where you're not trying to rob value from people who are creating value, uh, those people should actually become more competent because as they make more money and they have more time freedom, they have more time to learn and grow and develop as people instead of being like, what's the buzzword? Wage slave, right?
Mm.
Just what percentage of our population is probably in that category? 80%, even more, 85.
Yeah, 80%. I know 1 in 3 Canadians right now are like one emergency from literally just having their entire life fall apart.
think most Americans are too. Most people in Australia, New Zealand, throughout Asia, Africa. Like, I think it's in the lower income areas, people get by with a lot less, you know? Like, there's just periods where you just don't spend any money and you can actually do that. But also, like, as soon as you implement property tax or you're paying rent to the government every year to keep your property, that option goes away. You must acquire fiat. You must participate. And if there's no jobs, or if your job is being like arbitraged against you through multiple mechanisms of like taking your value and also not giving you adequate exchange for your value, oh, oh, it gets bad. So I think, yeah, we do address all these problems inside of the FiatRexa protocol, and I think people don't necessarily have to understand everything. It's just kind of like people should hedge and start working with the protocol, using the protocol, and give it time. Essentially, learn about it through usage because that's most practical and productive for you. It has the most utility and benefit. It's a way of doing research and learning, which will also allow you to, I think, hopefully learn it faster because you're executing and utilizing this knowledge. You're actually putting it in act. It's not just theory, it's actually applied in this kind of setup. So you should learn faster in theory. Well, a lot of science would state that is what happens. A lot of my subjective experience fully aligns with that, and a lot of other people who I've managed and trained, I would say, fully align with that perspective. But who knows? There's going to be outliers for sure. There's probably going to be some people who don't want to learn or can't learn. There's probably going to be a hard barrier somewhere. Can't say 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, people start learning, working with the protocol, understanding more about how everything works, getting benefit, seeing that difference, and then kind of they can reverse engineer and compare things. Like, use all the systems at your disposal. At the end of the day, don't trust anything. Like, verify, don't trust. You couldn't verify all the stuff on chain. As FiatRexa builds more and more and more, if you're in at the start, it's a lot easier to stay on top of that. If you're joining later, when we have hundreds of smart contracts and things are much more complicated because of all of the functionality and utility, it's going to take a lot of work to get through that. Like, if you join now, you're only like needing to catch up on like 10 contracts, one white paper. That's it, and you're mostly up to speed. You understand what's going on here. For the crypto space, you probably need to catch up on like a few dozen white papers.
Yeah.
Maybe more, plus like thousands of smart contracts.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of research. That's a lot of stuff to go through. If you haven't been in it for a while, like the catch up is going to be hard. So I think this is a good entry point for people. It's also designed as an entry point because it's a fiat first bias. Because at the end of the day, again, like people have bills to pay in fiat. Like, yeah, you should be having a significant share of your portfolio in Bitcoin, in my opinion. Maybe Ethereum, BNB, some other core tokens as well. Like Solana is being good recently, but also in terms of like a 10-year perspective, I don't think Solana is a good idea. Yeah, I think people start with FiatRexa, they start learning, they understand how money works. Like, there's a lot of interesting things that happen in the market which work against them that I think a lot of people just aren't aware of. It's kind of hidden, it's obfuscated. So with everything on chain and with a set of tooling that is purpose built to unobfuscate all this stuff in TradFi and to make it simpler and more direct, also in crypto too, but crypto doesn't need nearly as much deobfuscation. Crypto's from a very nice, transparent background, which of course makes it easy to attack because people are like, that person hacked something, or this person stole money, or there's money laundering of some variety, because you can kind of call movement of money laundering in some cases, which is weird. It doesn't always necessarily make sense. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. But I think the more we get on chain, the more advanced our analysis systems can become, and the more informed we can be as people, the more effective it will become. Like, there's a interesting phenomenon where it's like, when you take betting pools, people make a bunch of random guesses and like practically everyone's wrong, but when you take the average of those numbers, lo and behold, people are very close to reality. This is kind of like the intent of like free markets and price discovery and all these kinds of things. Like the sum of the mass creates a superior wisdom out of the stuff. And like AI is kind of like a crystallization of this, versus abstraction of the sum of humanity, right? I think FiatRexa should work this. Oh, I know FiatRexa will work the same way, because we are literally functionally doing the same thing. We're plugging in a bunch of users as contributors. We're decentralizing all the stuff. So we have all these nodes for data collection, and then it's working on averaging to certain degrees of confidence inside of the protocol, so that we can have very effective governance and management processes with really nice fail safes in place that go beyond anything we've ever been able to have before, really. So I think that is very interesting too. And I think like if people started to realize that maybe their banking and way of dealing with money is not so great, which I think people are beginning to do, because we're getting crypto growth, and there's like, I don't know what percent of the market, I think it was like 6 or 8% or something, are now like holding crypto, or had engaged with crypto or something like that. Although if it's just the engaged figure, that doesn't really mean anything, because a lot of people have touched crypto and then been like, never again. I bought a meme coin and it went to zero. Fuck crypto.
Typical life experience.
Yeah. So, like, they don't touch the utilities or do anything that's valuable, and then they're like, this crypto shit is garbage. Didn't even touch crypto, but they think they touched crypto. So, game theory, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly why it's like, we gotta, we just bring more people who can interact with the utility and allow them to see the value. And yeah, the main thing about being fiat first is really, really beautiful, because it allows people to be able to directly see the growth that is going to happen, because like as we're literally creating more fiats, like it's going to just allow more accessibility across the entire world.
And I was like, I think a lower barrier, because people already have some fiat experience. Everybody alive today has had some fiat experience, in my opinion. I'd be amazed if, okay, maybe a baby who was just born a second ago or something, like no fiat experience, probably for a few years, but you're over the age of like, look, I would say like 10. If you give like over an 80% grouping had like fiat experience, over 20, I'm going to say like over 98, 99% have had fiat experience. Like they have some idea, but they don't fully understand.
Yeah.
Say money is it like the people who have like low understanding of fiat always will call it money. Even people who have like moderate to high, because it's like colloquial. That's what everybody says. That's what I mean to talk about. If I say money, 9 times out of 10, more than that, people are talking about like physical fiat. But it goes beyond that too. People have banking accounts, right? Like that's non-physical. That's technically banking deposits. It's a format of fiat.
Mm.
All this stuff is from the fundamental node and root, but there's a bunch of varieties of how people interact with fiat today based on their level of competency and understanding of what fiat is. You can make that a lot easier and a lot more productive for people through tokenizing a fiat. And then you take all this crap that makes up the TradFi system, and you can cut out all the noise, all the fraud, and you can make it transparent and something you can program. So your freedom and flexibility with that representation of fiat, with that fiat format, is tremendous. So I think that's highly valuable. I think people are beginning to see that with stablecoins, but stablecoins miss the opportunity. They don't get it. They do not, or maybe they do get it and they're just greedy.
That could be a very fair point.
There are other construction issues, but I think it would be prudent for people to read through the FiatRexa white paper and at least have an understanding of what we're doing, and probably read through some of the stablecoin smart contracts and see how they actually work. If you can see like admin privileges in a tokenized fiat or stablecoin, I think that's a problem. Unless it's governed by a DAO, because otherwise you have a centralized actor who can do something with impunity, and that is always a problem, in my opinion. You want to be able to have like a way to make sure that things can't just be done without some consultation or reflection with the broader market, because the wisdom of the many, right? Like, also think about it this way: if you have a vested interest in something, and I don't know, something the project is trying to do something, like maybe we find out that someone is trafficking children, and we're like, hey, they have a wallet with a bunch of tokenized fiats, and they're interacting with the FiatRexa protocol. Should we blacklist them and their derivative wallets? Yes. Blacklist. As a community, we're like, yeah, this is fucked up. Alternatively, there could be a journalist in North Korea who got paid to do a report or something in tokenized fiats, and North Korea could be very unhappy with that. And then maybe people in FiatRexa are like, no, we don't care. They can have their tokenized fiats. Like, we're not blacklisting them from the protocol, you know? I think it creates a much more fair and reasonable and compassionate situation, because you're not going to have people who are weaponizing the centralized apparatus to attack people. And that's where really evil things happen a lot of the time in humanity's history. So I think we want to move away from that instead of going towards that, and prevent atrocities from occurring, like many tragedies, but atrocities. So yeah, I think that mostly covers what's up. I think we probably covered a few things.
Yeah, I think we definitely covered just about everything when it comes to how, yeah, tokenized fiats and stable coins are going to be what pushes this crypto cycle forward. They're going to be extremely essential, as well as obviously, some of the main cryptocurrencies out there like BTC, ETH, BNB, etc. But yeah, tokenized fiats and stable coins are going to be the backbone, no matter what happens, when it goes up or it goes down. That's what's going to be what allows you to sleep at night and know that your money is making you money, but is also stable.
Stable and safer than alternatives. So I think that's a really big deal, and also more moral. That probably doesn't matter to many people, but right now when you put money into a bank account, chances of it going towards like putting a bullet in a child, or mutilating something or someone, or causing significant harm or suffering is near 100%. The fuck? What have we done? Why are we like this? That data is harder to come by because we don't have everything necessarily in the public domain entirely. But there's enough for people to understand this, I think, if people really dig in and do their research. But that's going to be a hell of a rabbit hole for people to go down.
Yeah, I mean, it's either that or it's going towards random initiatives that don't actually help. It just ends up spending money for the sake of spending money, right? So having an idea and having a clear view of how your money is being spent is extremely important, guys. And I think the value just in that alone, as we've seen from everything that's happening in government right now, everything that's happening in the world in terms of unveiling so much corruption that's happened from different things, like people laundering money into different bank accounts, or people doing expenditures that don't quite make sense, or people even though they might have spent money on something that makes sense, maybe a lot of people didn't agree with that spending. So having a system that allows people to actively have a say and to have clarity on what's actually happening with the money is extremely important.
I think so. And maybe it'll make people make some changes in what they're doing with TradFi currently. Like, maybe they'll change from a banking institution to maybe a credit union, or maybe from one banking institution to another, or some other. They could change around their distribution of financial institution usage. If they are morally inclined and they do care about this stuff, and they do drop hundreds to thousands of hours of research into it so they can make informed decisions. Again, navigating misinformation, disinformation, all this kind of stuff. Or FiatRexa, super simple. Realistically, I think someone could get through it in like 3 to 5 hours if they're somewhat knowledgeable. If they know nothing, it could take them maybe like 25 hours because there's supplementary reading that they're going to have to do to understand other things. Maybe more. It really depends on their base level. If they know nothing, it could be a lot of reading necessary, a lot of dictionary consultation as well. But
hey guys, if needed, use AI to help you understand basic concepts. Don't use it to read the white paper for you. That's lazy. Read the white paper. If you don't understand a word, or you don't understand a phrase or an idea specifically, use AI for that. Get it to expand on the idea. This will allow you to be able to retain the information that much more because you can get it to associate with things that you understand and know.
100%. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Still not as good as reading the books, but I mean, in time terms, it's practical and effective. Mostly, it's very effective. Very productive. So I think that's a very good suggestion. Thank you for saying that. Bless you, bro.
For sure. Well, awesome, guys. This has been a pleasure. It was great being able to chat with you guys and share some knowledge on how fiats are going to be, or tokenized fiats as well as stablecoins are going to be taking over. So yeah, this is me and Chris, and we are signing out.
See you guys. All right.